Hi, my name is Nick. I've known Devin since we were young children. We both have always had an interest in the paranormal and the supernatural. But while we've had that interest, we've always kept a somewhat skeptical belief. We're realists. But we're fascinated by the unknown, what it could be, what it couldn't be, and we try to basically get to the bottom of that. Over the years, we've experienced a lot of different things, some separate, some together, things that we can explain, things we can't explain, and things that are in between. Today I'm going to talk about a story where I saw something in a field. It could be defined by a couple different things, but the general consensus is that it'd be a cryptid. Cryptids are usually unknown animals or creatures or things based off of legends, myths, and so on. I find them really fascinating. I think they're really interesting. I don't know how much faith I put into their actual existence. I've seen things that I can't explain. I don't necessarily know that makes me a believer in them, but it makes me question things. So this happened about roughly 5 years ago. It was the summer of 2015. It was late summer of 2015. Basically, I was home by myself. My parents had gone out of town for the weekend, and I was at home watching the dogs. And it was a summer day. It was a normal day by all standards. For some reason, I remember this really clearly because I never used to do this, but for some strange reason, I decided I was going to go for a walk that night. And it's around like 7:40-ish, 8 o'clock-ish, somewhere in that range. And I never went for walks. I mean, hell, look at me. I never went for walks. I decided I was going to go for a walk. And it was starting to cool down a little bit. And where my neighborhood is at the time, it's a rural area, but they're suburbs. There are 3 little main neighborhoods that all kind of connect to each other. And then there's some farmland, and then there's woodlands. So I decided I was going to go for a walk, and I was going to walk for the 3 neighborhoods. So I went ahead and I started to go down the street, and I left my neighborhood and I went towards the second neighborhood. And I walked through there, and it was still light out. It was starting to get a little dark though. And I went through the third neighborhood, and on the way back from the third neighborhood, you walk along the road, but there's woods that surround it on both sides. There's a little bridge you'll cross. I decided to walk through the third neighborhood, and I'm going back down from there. And by that point, I started to head home because it started to get dark. I'm walking through the woods. I started walking through the woods that surround the road that surrounded the woods, and I go across the bridge, and I'm listening to it. It's peaceful. It's nice. There's a little creek that goes underneath the bridge. I hear the sound of water going. I hear the birds are chirping. I hear frogs croaking, crickets. I hear a bunch of just sounds of the forest. And then I'm walking, and it hits I smell this just smell, and it hits you. It comes out of nowhere, and suddenly everything goes silent. If you know anything about animals, you know anything about the wilderness. If you smell something strong, and it could be rotten flesh, meat, eggs. If you smell a strong smell, normally it's a predator that's around. The sounds of the forest, animals, everything, they react when there's something large. And at first, I thought it was. I would have assumed it was me that made them stop. But I was walking through this area for a good 2-3 minutes, and they had not reacted to me whatsoever. But that smell hit, and then everything went quiet, and I got a little panicky, a little bit nervous. And that's when I heard from the left of me this low pitched like growl or rumble, and I snapped. Just fear overtook me. I took off running. So for where this was, there is I'm trying to phrase this. The road runs basically from this part and stuff runs, you pass the second neighborhood and straight to my neighborhood. And I took off running like a bat out of hell, which is a horrible decision because anyone who knows anything about predators, that the minute you run, when you start to go, you become prey. But I wasn't thinking, I just took off like a bat out of hell. And I went ahead and I got to my house, and normally it's like a 5 to 10 minute walk to get there, and I ran there in under 2 minutes. And I was just filled with adrenaline, and I was terrified, and I was scared. And it just, was just a really weird experience. But I went ahead and I went inside, I let my dogs out, and I took them in, and we went upstairs. And I was kind of coming down from it. I kind of put things aside. I had put things, out of, the frame of mind at the time. Basically what I did was I just watched a movie and I hung out, and then that's when it started to get a little weird again. I started hearing howling. I don't normally hear that. You don't normally hear that in my area. There are coyotes that we know sometimes come through the area, but again, it's not a common experience to hear howling. At least it wasn't at the time. I started hearing howling, and that made me nervous because everything that had happened, I had just been kind of out of, just not in a good, I wouldn't say good place. I was not reacting, as I normally would have. I was scared. So I tried to just kind of put things on my mind. I went into my room. I had brought all the dogs in with me, and in my room, the entire wall to the right side of my room is window. Basically, I, at the time, did not have curtains. The reason I have curtains in my room now is because of what I saw. By this point in time the night, it was around like 1-ish. It was a pretty well illuminated night. It was a full moon. It was bright out. There's a power station that's across the street from my house that has lights up, so you can kind of see the field. There's a big field, and then during the fall, it's farmland. It's there's usually cornfields, there's crops up, and then behind that is woods, and the woods go pretty deep for a while. And there are the occasional scattered field or house in between, but the woods go relatively deep. I looked out because of the howling, and I saw something running through the field. And it was brownish, and I saw it, and it was going on all fours, and it stopped. It stopped in the field, and I saw it go from all fours to lifting an arm up, basically, or a paw up, and looking its head back like this before getting to on both hind legs and then taking off. And the thing I remember about when I saw it turn back, I saw these yellowish eyes. I don't necessarily know what to make of that still, because it goes against a lot of things that I would, be known to be true. But I do know what I saw. And I've had weird things happen over the years since then. We've heard howling consistently, but both Devin and I have heard some really weird things. About maybe 2 years ago, we heard what sounded like coyotes being killed. Again, it's been really weird. There's a farmer across the street now. He fires shots off pretty consistently at night. He's got cattle, and it's gotten to the point now where it's weird, where 2-3 nights a week, and so I'll hear him go out around 1 or 2 a.m. and start firing shots off. I haven't talked to him about why he does that. I don't presume he does that to just shoot around, but it's left a lot of questions. Okay, so this is like the little part with the bridge. So this is like the main road. We're gonna go down over like the little bridge up here. So on the right there's some woods, and it goes back a little bit, but then you get back towards the neighborhood. On the left here is where I heard it, and this is a lot more overgrown than it normally is. You can actually usually see somewhat. The creek is actually right in between there, and then it's gonna go out of it here. Back to like the residential. This is one of the neighborhoods, and basically what happened is I took off down this road running. You can still see some of the trees here on the left here, and then you get the neighborhood part of it on this side as well then. But what happened is I took off running down this road to get back to my house, and I was running in pure terror, and I'm a big man. I do not run unless I absolutely have to. But yeah, you see the left here is, the field field. This is farmland and stuff. It looks like they're not doing corn this year, at least not yet. My neighborhood's on the right here. You'll see my house is actually the house with the white fence here, but this is the field. I saw it. This farmer's fence wasn't here where it used to be. I basically saw right down in this field here is where I saw it, and then it went basically back over the hill into the trees and then back through it that way. I don't know if anyone else has a similar experience or if you've seen anything. This is in South, Central PA, so if you have anything similar, let me know.